live. Kevin Curry, sir, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, man, for having me. What's up, Felix?
So, as I told you a few seconds ago, is there a little tidbit, a little story, a little something that the world doesn't already know about you from what's on social media or what's on YouTube or whatever, wherever it may be?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that I'm Dominican. They think that I'm from New York. I'm not Dominican. And they want to know about Spanish. Well, I live in Texas, so Spanish is widely spoken here, but I didn't really learn Spanish here. I actually went and lived abroad, and I lived in Ecuador. And one thing that I did was really immerse myself in the culture, and I worked when I was over there. So I worked in a restaurant, and I also worked in a gym. The cool thing about this gym is that they needed someone to teach hip hop dance classes, and I can't really dance that well. I can hold a beat, I can do my I can do my little two step, 4 count, 8 count, stuff like that. But I don't really know how to dance. But they let me teach the classes for hip hop dance classes because I'm Black American. So they just figured that he knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he's Black. So but that actually helped me out a whole lot with Spanish and understanding a lot more about the cultures and the different cultures that there are within the Spanish-speaking community. So most people think that I'm Dominican, but no, I'm not.
When was this trip to Ecuador?
I'm regular Black. I'm sorry, the trip was.
Yeah, when was it?
Well, this was back in college time. So this was God, I want to say I was living over there around 2004 time frame. So it was quite some time ago. And yeah, I did that. And then I came back after Ecuador, and I was completely fluent at that time. So I went to work for the government and did help here in Texas with Texas and Mexico, like relations on the border, would help out with a lot of translations and things like that. So that's where a lot of that comes from. But the passion just to reach out to, I really feel like the message of health and health and wellness in general should be attributed to everyone, no matter, their gender, their orientation, their religion, their background, cultural identity. And so when you look at the rates of diabetes and heart disease, they are really prevalent in the Black and brown communities. So putting the content in Spanish was like a no-brainer, something that I really wanted to go ahead and do.
Now, take me back, if you don't mind, in more of a chronological sense as to where, I mean, was it this trip where you felt like this passion for health and wellness came about, or was it, when you were younger that this all became very prevalent in your life? Like, take me back to that moment, if you can think of maybe it's a singular moment or a string of moments where you started to realize, okay, one, this is very important, and two, I want to get into this and make a life out of this,
Yeah. So it definitely did not happen when I was on this trip, back in 2004. My wellness journey didn't really begin officially until about 2009, 2010, when I started to get really serious about it and look at my life differently. So at that moment in my life, I was at a pretty low point. I was in a job that I didn't really care for. I was scorned from a bad breakup, and I found myself back home with my parents, and just pretty despondent. And so I knew I had to, that I wanted to make a change. And at that point, I was seeing a counselor, and they had put me on medication for depression and anxiety. So I was doing all these things, but I still felt I needed to do something more. Plus, I didn't feel good about Kevin. I didn't like the way that Kevin looked in the mirror. So it's like, take your health into your own hands. And so I hit my proverbial rock bottom, and I went to Half Price Books and bought literally every book they had there about nutrition and cooking, and just begin to read the content and understand for the first time in my adult life, or my life in general, well, what's a calorie? Oh, what's a protein? What's a fat? What's a carb? And there are different ways that you can mix and match things together in order to build a diet for you. And there are certain calories that I should be eating. Didn't even know that. So I taught myself this stuff, and then the idea behind Fit Men Cook, it was not what it was today. The idea was, since Kevin, you can't afford a personal trainer, why not just post everything out there that you're eating right now and see if you can crowdsource your diet, have other people share back with me, tell me some ideas, and then we can go from there. And I made it look good because I don't want the feedback to come back to be like, that looks like trash. It's terrible, bro. I really wanted, to help with my diet. So I made it look good, as good as possible. And what I realized that there are more people out there just like me who were tired of eating the same thing, of the cookie cutter, chicken breast, brown rice, and broccoli meals, that they wanted a lot more. And that's the place where I was. So people just began to follow me. The account began to grow, and the rest is kind of history. I fell in love with this as a passion on the side, and it became my full-time hobby and then my career.
And at what point did you realize, I mean, you talk about posting things in the beginning, kind of seeing where it goes. Was there one big moment where you started getting a lot of, impressions or whatever, clicks, what it likes, and you felt like, okay, wait, this is gaining a lot of traction, kind of like an overwhelming moment almost?
Yeah, so I started my Instagram back in the summer of 2012 in August, and I began to get some good traction on Instagram, but I was mainly using my Instagram to find out what to post to my Tumblr. But the cool thing about Instagram is that, people can engage right away and respond to you. So I like that piece of it. And by November 30th, I remember where I was in New York City. I was there because social media had been able to connect me with other people, and I began to form really meaningful, relationships with people. So there's a buddy that I met from New York City, two of them, and I flew up there to go and meet him for the first time. And on that trip, November 30th, I hit 10,000 followers. We were going out to eat, and they said, "Bro, you're blowing up. I can't believe it." And I said, "I know. That's 10,000. It's crazy. Can you believe it?" So came back home, and every morning what I would do here in Dallas is I would post this banana split, or I would eat this banana split. And it was something that I would do after my fasted cardio. And it basically was banana, Greek yogurt, a little bit of granola, chocolate chips, and some berries. And I posted it. The photo went viral. By January, I had over 100-something thousand followers. And then that was the first kind of tipping moment where I thought that something was different about this. And the second one was shortly after that, I got this email from bodybuilding.com. If you think back, the time, this is before Amazon took over everything, bodybuilding.com was one of the top websites in the world, not just health and wellness, but in the world. People went there for everything. They went there for their workouts, for their supplements, all that. So I get this email from them saying, "Can we hop on the phone?" I thought it was spam, didn't even respond. 2 weeks later, I got a follow-up message on Facebook. And I said, "All right, let me just go ahead and respond to this. Maybe it's not spam, I don't know." So I'm still there at my regular job, but I walk into this conference room to take this quick call that I'm thinking is going to be quick. And it's the entire editorial staff of bodybuilding.com, their editor-in-chief. And he says, "Hey, our athletes love your recipes. They keep sending them around the office. Will you come and write for us?" And I was thinking, and I told him, I was like, "Do y'all know what I look like? Because I don't look like your athletes, and I'm not there yet at all. I don't think I ever will be there because I love food way too much." They said, "But we love your approach to food, and we love your enthusiasm. Will you come write for us?" And so that was the other big tipping point for me, or realization moment, that I said, maybe there is something bigger out here to this, because before this was just a passion project for me to save my diet.
What do you, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, what do you think it is about food and diet and wellness in general that brings this kind of attraction to it, and that there's so much, I mean, it's become, I mean, for you, it's a career now. I mean, you see your social media is incredible. I mean, the things you post are so well done, but there's also so much, people want this content. What do you think it is about it that attracts people to it?
Well, a couple of things. I think in the very beginning, and even still today, this is true, that people fundamentally just want balance, and they just want to feel happy, and they want to feel good, and they want to be able to eat food that doesn't push them farther away from their wellness goals. Everybody has that fundamental need to do that. And with my recipes, especially early on, I'm not classically trained in food. I'm just figuring it out, and I'm putting things together, and it's working, and I'm losing weight, and I'm sharing that. So the fact that I set the bar really, really low, and that you don't have to be a professional chef or have a culinary background to make these recipes. This is just simple foods that you can get at your local grocery store. And at the time, the one that I always went to, because it wasn't that developed, it was was Walmart Market, and that was the best one too, like for my budget. So I was posting things that people could quickly and easily get, and they were making them too, and it came out great. And now fast forward all the time, we've grown a whole lot. And one thing that I've just made sure to reign true, because you talk about the content, I spend a lot of time thinking about the content that we put out there, not just in recipes, because the reality is this: you can go on Pinterest or you can go on Google and you can do a search for a chicken recipe, and there will be millions that come up. But what I want when people come to our page or read my book or download our app is that I want them to walk away with the sense of, oh, wow, that was so easy, and wow, that was so fun. Well, I want to connect the energy and the enthusiasm of healthier choices with the content that we put out. So I'm going to share the chicken breast recipe, but there's going to be so much energy involved with it, because that's the same type of energy that you're going to have when you eat foods that are calorie conscious and that make you feel better.
Gotcha. Now, did you, this is almost a side question. What did you think when you were younger that you would be doing with your life? I mean, did you ever imagine that this would be, how old are you today?
I'm 38.
Did you ever imagine at 38 this would be the life that you were going to live?
No. Think when I was in college, I wanted to be an architect. Then that switched over to be doing consulting. And then after college, I felt that I really wanted to do something to change the world. So after coming back from Ecuador, I went off to graduate school, and then I worked in city politics for a little bit. And then I went back to corporate America to get in, because I really liked that. And all of this was happening at the same time. So I never saw like this part coming. This was just a passion project that started as a way for me to change my diet and also to feel better. I was pretty depressed at the time, and I do struggle, and I have struggled with chronic depression, and that's a new part of my story. Not new to me, but new to my followers, that I've been opening up about in recent years, that the impact of mental health and anxiety and depression and all those things have on our food choices. So this is not something that I actually imagined for myself, but it was just a beautiful thing that actually happened.
And what's that like? I mean, when you start talking about, for a while, people might know you as the person who's helping them with their diet and wellness, and then all of a sudden you transition and talk more about something that puts you more in a vulnerable, spot, and you have such a big platform. We talk about that experience, and I mean, I could maybe imagine, I don't know, that at times it's a little bit maybe daunting to start going into a completely different field that's, equally as important, but is just showing a very different side to you. What was that like, or what has that been like?
Yeah, at first it's very terrifying, because you're making yourself vulnerable to millions of people, and that's just not a good feeling. But I had to remind myself of the reasons why I'm doing this, and it was to really help out people who were just like me. I don't want people to feel that way, and I knew fundamentally that I would have to get to this point, because that was just the one big missing part of my story. Even I didn't feel as connected to my story at times personally, just because I didn't really feel like my authentic self. And it's not because I'm lying about things. It's just that I just chose not to share that, because it's so vulnerable, and taking me there and even talking about it, even today, it's very sensitive. But I know that there are so many other people out there that struggle with this. Like 1 in 4 people struggle with mental health issues and depression and anxiety. So when I finally shared, I remember the day that I finally did like this video, and I ran into my corner and turned off social media, turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear any comments. I just went and did it. And then when I turned it back on, I had so many missed calls from my manager, people that other brand partners, and then just the emails that just kind of flow in. And they still flow in today. I got an email yesterday from someone that said, I just watched your whole life depression video, and thank you so much for putting that out there, because I have been suicidal, and seeing and hearing your story lets me know that there's hope. But also the fact that people always knew me as the happy guy, and I am happy. And that's the part that I really struggle with. That like, I don't want people to think that I'm not happy, that I've been living a lie, because it's hard to explain this to people maybe who don't have it. But I am very, very happy in life, but I also have depression. And it's this weird dichotomy in the sense that like, you can be, and that's how you know it's depression, because there's nothing really wrong in your life, but you're just sad. And you struggle with this intense sadness and anxiety all the time, even just when you wake up in the morning. So I didn't want people to start to look at me differently and be like, he's faking it for the camera. No, I'm actually really happy, but I'm also just fundamentally depressed at times. But that's been great. It's been a great evolution of the brand too, to kind of talk about this. And the more I've realized that the more vulnerable I am, in safe ways, that the more I'm rewarded in that people open up to me and that they feel a lot more connected to the story.
And so how do you, how does what you do, professionally help you? Do you feel like cooking and working out and all these other things are sort of outlets? How do you kind of manage, being this happy person that perhaps is also fundamentally depressed at times, but also, for a lot of people, whether if they're actors, acting is their outlet. For you, is cooking and this wellness, does that give you that kind of balance that you talk about?
Yeah, it does give me balance. In fact, this is not to prompt this, but I'm writing a second book right now, and this one is going to be interrogating a lot more of mental health and wellness and people on the go, people who are trying to achieve balance. And that's one of the things that, that I get into, that that cooking helped to save my life, and Fitman Cook helped to save my life, and that there are times where it'd be hard to even get up and check the mail, but I could walk into the kitchen, and if I cooked the meal from start to finish, I feel so much better about myself and be like, Kevin, you got a gold star today. You actually did something from start to finish. Then the compounded effect of like, oh, I made myself something calorie conscious and it's healthy. It's got some brain boosting and some mood boosting ingredients in there. So I feel better with that. So I had the compounded effect of what I'm putting into my body. So I was cooking my way to a healthier and happier lifestyle. That's why whenever I said that, I always say that, as one of my taglines, just to be healthy and happier. Like, that's not me just being hyperbole, and saying that. It's actually something that I actually have lived, that I've seen myself cook my way to happiness. Now, I'm not saying that cooking and eating healthy and eating healthy is the end all for depression and anxiety and mental health issues. What I am saying is that you can't discount the effects that following a process through from start to finish, eating healthy, exercising regularly, you can't discount the effects that those things will have on your overall mood.
And now how do you, for some people who perhaps are overweight or struggle with a variety of different, issues, it can be daunting at times to make these life-changing switches, like this.
Right.
Do you have kind of, you could probably talk about it for hours and years even, but just for someone who perhaps feels like, well, it's a lot to change my diet all right now. It's a lot to start going to the gym all right now. It's a lot, perhaps they're also suffer from mental health problems, and it's all these things, as you talk about, kind of compounded, that make this, that it feels like you're looking up at a mountain. What do you feel like is, do you have a best piece of advice, maybe a best piece of advice that was given to you on how to just get started, baby steps?
Yeah. What I always tell people is to, first off, don't boil the ocean. So what that means is that sometimes whenever we're trying to make a change and we really want to get started, we're so hurried and we try to change everything about our life in one day at one moment. And I'd say less than 5% of people are actually successful with that approach. The rest of us will get burned out, whether it's the next day or a month or even maybe a year from now. You're going to get burned out with that approach. So when I say don't boil the ocean, we don't try on day one and boil the ocean. We're going to just boil a little piece of it and then heat the ocean up gradually. That's the same way that you should approach, your diet. So just find one thing that you can change about your diet. Find one thing that one habit that is bad that you need to work on. So for you, it could be drinking sodas. Maybe you drink 6 sodas a day. All right. Your next challenge for the next month or the next 2 weeks, I want to get you down to 2 sodas each day. Just work on that. Just work on this one thing. And then maybe just 1 soda each day, and work on that thing. And when you do it this way, when you break it down, all of a sudden this happens. You get wins. And when you get a win, you feel confident. You're like, oh, well, that wasn't that hard. Maybe try something else. And then you gradually over time keep making these incremental changes. And then all of a sudden you will be like me and you'll wake up one day and realize, oh snap, I just changed my entire diet, my entire lifestyle. When I first started out, the meal that I started out with was lunch. And that was because I was spending too much time, too much money eating out with some coworkers. And also I realized I needed to just like eat better. So I did my lunch for about a good, like 3 weeks. And I said, all right, let me try breakfast or my post workout. And then pretty soon I would remember like waiting for the weekends to go, to Whataburger and have a juicy burger. And I realized one week that like, oh, I haven't had my burger this weekend. Oh, that's crazy. Why? Because my regular diet that I ate daily was now all healthy. Everything that I was doing was prepped or just healthier. And that was because like I just gradually made these changes, and the foods that I craved before, I just stopped craving them.
Gotcha. Now, what also stands out to me, I mean, I've only spoken to you really for about 25 minutes, but there's a very clear work ethic and discipline that I notice and that I have a lot of respect for. Where do you feel like that comes from? Have you always been this? I mean, you can even tell with your social media. It's everything is precise, everything is calculated, everything it all falls under the work ethic category, in my opinion. Have you always had this kind of dedication and work ethic?
Yeah, I have. In school and stuff, growing up, we were taught certain things, and working hard was one of those values that my parents instilled in me. My dad was sick at a very young age, when I was young, and say that because he was hospitalized and whatnot, but he still kept the job. He still kept working. He still kept food on the table and did what he could. And those are some of the values that were passed on to me. My mom, too, had to work 2 and 3 jobs, and my dad was really sick. So me and my brother, we grew up knowing the value of hard work, putting in that, and then also, my faith. And one scripture that I always come back to is faith without works is dead. And that you can believe God all you want, you can trust, and you could do all that. You could be in the clouds, but you do have to give God something to work with. It means you got to put your best foot forward sometimes and put some muscle into it. So those are things that I've learned. What I will say to people out there too who are listening to this, and if you struggle getting started, first off, go back to what I just said and start with this one thing. But there's something that happens whenever you get your stride and get your momentum. It's kind of like, when people say you get the runner's high. I've never run long enough to get the runner's high until recently. And I said, oh, okay, I just have to keep going. So the same thing happens whenever you begin to make a lifestyle change, that like once you start going at it and once you get your momentum, like it's really hard to stop. And what's also happens is that you get so excited about the changes that you're noticing in your own body and in your own life that you just continue to do more. So it's that's actually really happening. That's why I would make this joke. Those people on Instagram, like, like when they lose like 10 or 15 pounds, they all become like life coaches and they tell you about everything that's going on. And I said, that's the effect of what healthy living will do. It makes you feel that you can just accomplish everything in the world. You just are like, everything is so clear now, right?
Right.
Because the competencies that you get and the discipline that you have just to say no to the Snicker bar maybe and yes to the apple. Right. I'm just, saying that discipline, that's the same discipline that you can transfer to your regular life. When it's time to make those hard decisions in your life, you can say, you know what, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to stick with it. So yeah, it just takes some time, but you have to do it long enough to get to that point. You've got to be dedicated enough.
Now, where do you see yourself? Like, how do you, for you personally, kind of go to that next level, whether it's your brand, whether it's books, whether it's your Instagram? I mean, 7-8 years ago, I don't know if you could imagine you would have been here today. So in this position, so for you, what does that next level look like? What do these next, in your hopeful, 5-10 years kind of look like for Kevin Curry?
Yeah, the next couple of years look like brand building for our brand. Like I spent so much time building up other brands and working with brands that I really admire. that have helped me. And there's one promise that I made to myself, that if I ever got the opportunity, this was back in 2011, 2010, when I was trying to figure things out, that if I ever got the opportunity, that I would only promote things that I really cared about, and that I'm not going to put out a whole bunch of junk. Because I was that guy in 2010 and 2011 who I would buy everything. If it was a fat burner out there, I probably bought it. There's a supplement out there, I bought it. I could piss in a cup and it would eat through the cup. It was taking so much stuff, right? And so I told myself, if I ever got a platform, that I would be responsible with it. So I have been very picky about the brands we partner with, because most people don't know this, but I am a forever consumer. I know companies send me a lot of stuff, but before they can even send it, 90% of the times I've already bought it. I've already bought it. I've already tried it out. I just do that silently. So I spent a lot of time these past couple of years working with brands that I really admire and I think put out quality stuff. And it hit me maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. It was like, why can't we be that brand? Why can't we put out products that we stand behind, the integrity, that help people to live a tastier, healthy, and happy life? So the next 5 years, that's what we're going to be doing. We just launched some spices. We've got some amazing sauces coming. I'll give you a little, teaser here. And no one else, I haven't said this actually, like anywhere. Actually, I haven't told my following that one of my biggest inspirations for the stuff that we get for the products have been my travels abroad and tasting certain things. And so this next go around with these sauces, where it's going to be sourced from Colombia. Ooh. And if you know anything about South America, they have, oh my God, the vastness of the produce there is just spectacular. It's second to none. And the peppers. So we're going to be bringing some sauces that you haven't tried before, that are just going to be super amazing. And then moving on to snacks and then other things. So I want to be that brand that people can look up to and admire and say they put out good stuff.
Very exciting. To wrap things up, do you ever think about legacy? Do you know, is there a legacy that you hope to leave, hopefully in a long, long time, when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I don't know how to articulate that right now, but of course I think everybody would want to leave like a legacy. I want to leave my mark. I want, at the end of the day, that people could say that I did this with integrity, that I built a brand of integrity. And I want also for people to know that, just chiseling away at that stigma of mental health, that mental health looks like everybody else. It looks like me and you. It looks like the people listening on this podcast. Mm-hmm. It's not the people who we always so quickly attribute it to things that are really negative within our society, like mass shootings or, or like other types of disorders, that it's okay that you don't feel 100% of the time every single day of your life. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know that they can take the pressure off themselves and they can still be functional and do amazing things and accomplish their goals. But giving people permission to be human, I think, is also another legacy point that I would love to leave behind.
Beautiful. You can find Kevin on Instagram at FitMenCook, on Twitter at FitMenCook. You have your book, everything you can find on your website at fitmencook.com. Yeah. Your app is great. I saw it was having a lot of success. You can get healthy recipes for only $3.99 on the App Store. Kevin, truly a pleasure to talk to you. First of all, you're always welcome. Hopefully one day when you're in New York City, we'll bring you in studio. But you are really an inspiration, and I'm really excited for all the new things that are coming out. So first of all, thank you for taking the time, and talk to you soon, man.
Thank you, Felix. I appreciate you, bro.